Good afternoon, this is Healing Waters Sanctuary and I'm Juliet Yelverton, and I'm here today to talk to Maya Pelham Green. Or is it Maya Green Pelham?
Maya Pelham Green.
Maya Pelham Green, hi. And Maya attended my introduction to trauma healing workshop, and she is actually participating on the healing trauma for therapist training that starts in January. And Maya was wanting to share a little bit about what happened for her on that day last week when we did the workshop. And we do have another workshop coming up on the 6th of December, which is a taster for alternative therapists, practitioners, healing practitioners, doctors, anyone who is working with people in a healing capacity. So the workshop is to get a taster of what it is that's blocking you in your own healing process, and what are the skills that can help you meet the challenges that you have as a healing practitioner to enhance your practice and to deepen your work and to be able to be of more service and better service to your clients. So I'm just going to ask Maya now. Maya, when you were present on the workshop, what was it that really supported you most in your personal process on that day? What helped you?
It was the way we created a feeling within ourselves. So rather than start learning techniques to help people deal with trauma, we started by focusing on ourselves and creating a sense of, or a feeling of well-being. It could be anywhere in our body, it could be very small or very big, but to find that sense of well-being before we did anything else, and to always come back to that feeling. And we kind of played around with either seeing if we could expand it or we could hold it, and that sense of well-being was very, very supportive throughout the whole day. Yeah.
So how do you see a sense of well-being as being applicable to you as a therapist?
Well, with any kind of therapy, whether it's for the body or for the mind or for energy, you're trying to create that sense of well-being. That person's come to you for healing, or any kind of healing for the body or your mind or anything. And without that sense of well-being, you can't create healing. The person still doesn't feel well.
So creating a sense of well-being and creating a sense of safety.
Yeah.
And did you feel safe on that day?
I felt very safe.
Yeah. And what helped you feel so safe?
Well, we started by creating a space, which made it into a container, which you feel held, you feel safe. So it felt safe to be vulnerable, which can lead to healing, because you're working on some painful issues in some way. So you need to be able to feel safe to do that.
Yes.
So it was very important to create a space with all of us, and then create the tools to maintain that feeling. Yeah.
So feeling safe, how is that applicable to trauma? Do you have an understanding of that? Because you've also experienced a really big trauma yourself, haven't you? I don't know if anyone who's watching this may have watched a previous interview that I did with Maya, but prior to her working as a therapist herself, prior to being a masseur, Maya had a really terrible accident, a life-threatening accident, which she very miraculously recovered from, and from there, that was the foundation for her deciding to work as a therapist. So in your experience, Maya, of having gone through a tremendous traumatic experience, how is safety important in healing trauma?
Well, when you're traumatized, you don't feel safe, because what the trauma is, well, was for me, was as a reminder of the accident, almost. Because I knew this terrible thing had happened to me. I knew it was painful and it was scary and life-threatening. Anything that triggered memories or a similar feeling, even it could be very small, it didn't have to be very big, would make me feel unsafe because of what had happened to me. I thought it could happen again. So feeling safe is like the opposite of trauma. So how can you resolve trauma without creating a feeling of safety and well-being?
So it's absolutely essential that safety is essential to healing trauma, because it's, as you say, the opposite. Because in trauma you're not safe. Yeah. So in terms of the workshop, did you have a sense that it was necessary to go right the way into a lot of difficult circumstances in order to heal, or was...
No, I don't. For me, the structure of the workshop felt different to other things I'd done because of that. It wasn't wading into every little experience and all the trauma and trying to fix something. Like it was broken, like the trauma had made me broken or something and I needed to fix it. And it wasn't trying to dispel it. It was more about creating enough of a sense of strength, safety and well-being to recognise that you have trauma, and also to recognise that you're safe now. So it wasn't to try and fix it, it wasn't to try and ignore it, but it was more to acknowledge it was there and to realise that that's not how it had to be right now, that you could change it.
So when people are traumatised, you may have experienced this, that you are stuck in what we call trauma time, and every little thing can trigger you into that traumatic response. Yeah. So when you create safety, you get a sense that you're not in that now, and that in order to heal the trauma, you don't actually have to go back into the trauma in order to heal it. What you need to do is to create safety. So safety is the healing. Yeah, so that's a skill to how to. So before you did the trauma work with me and you were triggered all the time, what kind of things could trigger you?
Anything that posed danger. So heights was a big one. Hot things, fire, knives. I mean, I could just be seeing someone chopping up something with a knife and I would imagine them hurting themselves or them hurting me or something, some kind of accident happened.
So your mind was continually cycling on that, and then seeing a knife and you would get brought back into what happened to you, and all the fear and the anxiety would arise.
The unsafety.
And the unsafety, So people who are traumatised get triggered all the time by apparently normal things around them, and without necessarily knowing what's triggering them. It's just that, again, they're escalating into a sense of deep anxiety or fear, or terror even. So as a masseur, how do you see that this work is applicable, given that somebody comes into your therapy practice and they're lying down on a table? How could, if they had trauma in their system, what's the likely thing that could trigger them?
Well, touch can be a big trigger for a lot of people, because you often don't know what trauma a person has had, or whether they've had kind of bodily trauma. So you could effectively be touching the areas of their body that they've had trauma in the past. Even if there's no visible signs, it could still be a very vulnerable area for them. Or just being close to anyone, being face down on a table, could be very traumatic for some people. And learning how to hold a space for someone who's potentially traumatized, and to approach them correctly is very valuable as a therapist.
So could you tell us a little bit more about approaching them correctly and how that's important to maintaining safety?
Well, in terms of asking permission for contact or to touch, is quite important for people who are traumatized. Now, as a therapist, a massage therapist, people are coming knowing that they will be touched, but that doesn't mean that their body's completely ready for it. So the way you initially approach a body can effectively alter the whole energy and the direction of the treatment. Yeah.
So the way you touch is really important. So how would you, having done the introductory workshop, what did you learn there about touch that is helpful?
Well, it's safest for a person to continue feeling safe, to approach them very subtly and very gently, even if you can't verbally ask permission. You're asking permission with your hands. So you need to approach the body in a very aware, conscious, present state.
So being very conscious and negotiating, not verbally but with the degree of touch, that the speed that you are touching, and a sense of how the body is responding when you put your hands on, and so on.
Yeah. Makes a very, very big difference to the whole energy of the treatment. Yeah.
So what could happen with somebody on a massage couch and they're very traumatized, and you approach them very in a very unsafe way? What do you anticipate could happen?
Well, potentially, especially if the client's coming for help with a particular issue, a natural reflex is to pull away or to tense up. And if the muscles there are already damaged or injured in some way, it's very counterproductive to the treatment to make the client even more tense or even more painful.
So Maya, as a therapist, what are the challenges that come up for you in your therapy practice that's helpful for you when you do the workshop?
To be able to help assist people in their healing process, you need to be able to create that feeling of healing or well-being in yourself. Without that, how can you help someone else create that feeling? So the workshop was very helpful in that sense, because without a feeling of well-being in ourselves, there's no expansion in how we can help other people in their healing. If your comfort zone for your own feelings and your own healing is very narrow, you're limited as a therapist in how you can help other people.
So for instance, if as a masseur you were giving a massage to somebody who'd had a really serious accident of a similar nature to what you had, and you hadn't done your personal healing trauma work on that, then you could be triggered into the feelings of what happened.
Yes, potentially.
And then not be fully present for the person because you're in your activated state.
Well, as a therapist, you're there for someone else, for whatever they've come to you for. And if something happens that triggers you in your past memories of trauma or emotionally or anything like that, then you're focusing on you rather than on the client, and so it greatly limits how much you can help them.
Yes.
because you're responding from your own feelings.
Yes, and in addition to that, that you may be activated, so something might come up that triggers you into your fear. And with extreme trauma, one thing that happens is that people become dissociated, so they're very spacey, very ungrounded. Or, for instance, you can feel very fearful and want to run. So, for instance, if a client brought a situation into the therapy practice of that was about extreme fear, and you get triggered, then you can perhaps be finding it difficult to actually just hold that container and stay very strong and clear for your client. Yeah,
and it's very it's a great disadvantage as a therapist, because it limits what you can do for them. If you can't hold the space, then they won't feel safe enough to trust you to help them.
Absolutely. So we're going to be doing many more things on the training, Maya. So far we've had a little taste, but there are many levels of trauma healing that that you will learn and other people will learn. And it's important to say that this isn't about actually having to become a trauma therapist. It's about having the skills to hold your client in their own within your own healing modality. So for you, Maya, you may have people come to you that have had bad accidents, that may be extremely stressed in difficult marital situations, or they may be grieving. Each one of those situations are potentially traumatic, and you will be able to apply the skills, the trauma skills, to how you work with them within the context of being a masseur. Yeah,
very adaptable for all kinds of therapy, and very relevant for any kind of therapy.
Absolutely. Now, the one other question I wanted to ask you is, when you were training as a masseur, did you cover these kinds of topics?
No, not at all. I think the closest we got was learning how to ground ourselves. So to an extent it brought us into our present kind of body much more than we would have been without it. So in that sense you could argue it was useful, because we're far more present in the treatment. But being present doesn't mean that you're creating a feeling of safety and well-being for yourself, and being able to create it for someone else.
And did you learn anything about activation of the nervous system and what happens if people are triggered into fight or flight, or extreme shutdown, or if they were to have a fainting fit in your therapy space, or if they were to become very nauseous and start throwing up, for instance? Or
no, not at all. There was no skills taught on how to deal with the other aspects of a person that could be brought up in body work. It was, when you work with the body, it's not just working with the body, you're working with the whole person. But in the training, you're only taught how to work with the body. Yeah, in the massage training, yeah. So nothing about, for instance, if somebody has been raped and your touch stimulates flashbacks and terror that they're about to be... there was no work on that level.
Yeah. I mean, the other aspect of this is that you're very vulnerable as a therapist in a massage situation, and that somebody that has, for instance, had a lot of sexual abuse may be so triggered that they don't really understand the context of your touch, and might then reflect back that you yourself have been abusive to them. So that's another difficult thing to hold, and to be able to contain that and hold it safely, so that activation level in the client can go down, and that they can feel safe, and that you can feel safe as well. Yeah, definitely. So I'm really looking forward to our next workshop that you're coming along to on the 6th of December, and we have spaces still on this workshop for anyone that would like to contact me, and the contact details are underneath this video. And the training starts on, I think it's the 27th and 28th of January, and it's 6 modules, 6 weekend modules, spanning approximately 9 months of 2015. And there will be other work following on from that. But if you have any questions, do email me at the contact details below. And Maya, is there anything else that you would like to add to what we've shared already?
Just that from the experience that I had at the workshop, this training is very invaluable for any kind of therapy. Not even just for therapists, but for your own development. Really, really worth it.
Okay, thank you very much, Maya, for spending the time today. And
thank you.
Okay. So thank you, and I look forward to sharing with you again.